Welcome to Timberborn and the settlement of the Steeltide. We're playing on the Terraces map on hard mode, and at cycle 29, we're finally getting secure from the drought. And that means it's time to build some more fun things. In today's video, we're going to start building a new massive power generator, as well as connecting all of our colony into one power grid. Our colony has got a problem. So we've got tons of food now, we've got tons of water. What we don't have is a good source of power. You'll notice that we've got just a ton of engines scattered throughout the map. And these engines are great for placing wherever you need them to get power, but they come with a very big downside, and that's that they use up our log. We have massive tree farms throughout this map, but a lot of that timber is basically being turned around and burned at these engines for power. And that's what I want to really fix in this episode. At the end of last episode, I start just that. And you'll notice I added these water wheels over near this bad water discharge. And the idea is that even in droughts, we're able to get a reliable flow of water and use that for energy. But I don't think this is going to cut it. Even if we get all of these power wheels built, I'm still going to eventually want more power. I also want to use this mesa for something else in the future. So if I've got all these power wheels here, that's going to kind of stop that. That's what I want to set out to do in this episode. And you'll notice we've got a ton of space to work with down here, just to the south of this giant mesa that I've been taking to calling Junkertown, because this will eventually become the land of the bots. But what I have in mind is I want to take this corner of the map, start to put down underground water wheel loop, just like this. But the idea is it's going to be underneath, and we can eventually build a whole mesa surrounding it to disguise it. Now, I don't want this to be like a giant construction where we have to spend like episodes and episodes building something massive only to get power. That's not going to be what I want. Instead, I want to build it piecemeal. So I want something small that we can build for now, and then keep on adding to as the game progresses. That's also going to be a logistics nightmare because you can see how far away the main center of our base is from everything else. So the good news is we've already got this road all the way down here, which is a good start. But I'm going to need to start getting resources down here, especially if I'm going to be doing lots of work. So I'm going to start with a few piles of resources that we can use. We're going to need planks, as well as logs, as well as, I think, dynamite. We're going to be using a lot of dynamite down here. We're also going to be having a lot of beavers working down here, so I'm going to have some food carted in for them too. This is a new technique. I haven't really done this technique in the past, just because we haven't been doing large enough construction to warrant it. But let's see if this pays off. This will be an experiment. The other thing I'm counting on is getting more bots into play. Now, we've got 19 bots right now, but that's going to slowly keep growing based on this construction here. And as we get more and more bots, that's more bots that I can assign to building here and keep running all the way through the night. Okay, as we start making space, we're just going to tear out all those trees. And the reason I like to put a lumberjack down is instead of just tearing these out, I can cut them down and then use them for supplies for the eventual construction here. Okay, all our supply buildings have been built. I'm going to switch all of these to obtain and to prioritize by haulers so they can bring everything out here. With that, I'm going to start laying down a little strip of dynamite. I want to try to level this out just a bit. I'm not going to dynamite all of it yet because, again, I want something incremental. So my goal, like I mentioned earlier, is to recreate something like this, but at large scale, underground. So the idea is, let's say that water were to flow off of the map over on this edge here. So we'll use these levees as kind of to show the flow of water. What I'd like to do is start the zigzag this way. Right? All these trees are in the way. But if the zigzag went this way, then it went up, and then would zigzag back, and this can snake all the way back here. And then we've got the option of extending this in two ways. Well, actually, we've got the option of extending this in three ways. One way we could go this way, closer to the corner. The other way we can extend in this direction to get closer to the river. And eventually, once both of those are done, we have the option of stacking upwards and making this like a three-dimensional cube. Now keep in mind, all this is going to be underwater and eventually covered with a mesa. So the idea is it's very discreet. For example, if we look over at our food factory here, just looking at this, it's hard to tell that actually underneath this all, we've got a giant storage. And so that's the same thing I'm going for with our power. I don't want it to be obvious that there's a giant power plant being constructed here. In a few short days, we've got all the trees now clear cut, We can start figuring out our plan. Now, as I was saying, I want all of these buried. And if I'm going to bury one of these large water wheels, we have to figure out the height that we're going to need to bury it. So we'd have to have quite high contraption to get this layered. And if we count this up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So each height of 6 gives us one layer for our wheel. So if I wanted to make this very discreet to begin with, that means we're going to have to dynamite at least 6 down from the surface. And that brings us to the question, what is the surface over here? Because this is a very, mixed, rugged terrain. I'm going to say that this layer, the layer that I'm dynamiting down to, that is going to be what the surface is right here. So this little trench here, we're going to consider that to be already kind of dynamite at one layer down. So we'll start on the edge here. We'll say that water is going to be put out somewhere down here. And I want at least some space away from the edge of the map so I can disguise it. So we'll start with digging a trench 3 down right here. And to make it easier to work with, this trench down here, I'm going to dynamite 2 down just so it becomes at the same height as everything else. It's going to make it a little bit easier for me to see what's going on as I plan. Like that. And this actually brings me to another set of supplies I should probably cart in. I've got dynamite down here, but I don't have extract. And if we're going to be working with a lot of this multiple layer dynamite, we're going to need extract. So here's yet another thing for the builders to cart in. I'm noticing also that we're starting to get a few spare bots finally being free. We filled up all our heavy industry with them, so I'm going to create 2 building huts. And I'm going to dedicate these just to our bots. That way they can run and continue operating all through the night. And they're nice and close. Okay, this dynamite plan is looking pretty good. In the meantime, let's go make the rounds to see how the rest of our colony is doing. First off, it looks like our power plant on here finally came online. And it's producing way more power than we're actually drawing over in this miniature factory here. So the good news is that means that we can pause all of our engines here. We don't need any of those, and we should still be able to keep this running. And that's going to help save some of our logs. Well, our food supply is looking pretty good. We've got 4.7k food. We're short on eggplant rations. I see we've got a lot of eggplants, so I'm guessing that there's a bottleneck with our food factory up here. This could also be a lack of haulers not getting everything planted to them in time, because it's missing eggplants, but the eggplants are available right down here. That's a matter of additional haulers needed. Water is topped off at 11k. We're doing great there. We're just taking the time to fill up all of our containers of water in this short wet season. Now, I am seeing a problem down here, though. Our population has been inching up, and we've got another 26 homeless beavers. And that points to an interesting kind of play with the iron teeth for population control. Normally in my head, I've been mapping out, 10 population for each one of these pods. But that calculation is based on a certain life expectancy of the beavers. As our happiness gets higher and higher, the life expectancy of your beavers will get higher and higher. And so that means that the natural carrying capacity of a set of pods will inch up over time. Now, I haven't done the math, but we are seeing the effect of that because I haven't been messing with our pods for a while, but our population is slowly, excluding bots, we're getting up into the 200 range. And that's naturally going to come with, increased strain on our food and water. Luckily, we've got enough backlog, enough water tanks that's not a problem for us, but we should at least give them some homes. Moving on in a tour of our colony, we've got our tree farms. We've got this massive tree farm over here that is just starting to come online. And, I noticed I made a vital mistake. This tree farm has never been marked for chopping, so that's why nobody is working on it. So we'll make sure that's chopped because we're going to need it for all our new construction. And that brings us to Junkertown, our mesa to the south. Well, it looks like a pretty desolate place, but otherwise it looks like it's working fine. Most of these buildings are starting to be filled by bots. Spying in the distance, I can see that it looks like our TNT is getting very close to being done. We've got our first bit of basement set up. Now, this is going to have to go down at least another 3 for the water to flow through. And this part here is going to be where the water is going to flow off the edge of the map. Now, if we think of the next round that needs to be worked on, we're going to have these stacked up on the edge here. So that means that we're going to need a lip, and I'm just going to put a levee to mark it. We're going to need a lip all the way down here. That means that on the opposite of this levee is where we're going to have our next power wheel, right? So if one is here, the next round is going to be over on this side. So we're going to need slightly elevated terrain in each of these locations to hold the water wheels. So I think that means these trenches right here, they're going to go 3 down. And wherever we need those lips on the edge, those are only going to go down 1 more. Because that would mean they're elevated 2 above everything else. And that should give us something like this. So the water is going to flow through this zigzag and off the map here. Now, you'll notice that I've kind of left some dynamite missing on this edge here, and that has to do with some long-term thinking. What I'd like to do is eventually have a channel separate from the zigzag that runs parallel just to the side of everything. Now, I'm not going to dynamite that just yet, but the idea is that if I ever at some point need to put a second story to this, I'm going to have to change the direction of the zigzag. So for example, if I had a second story, it's going to start on this side, flood, zigzag back and forth, fall down here, and then now have to zigzag backwards until I get to something to get it off the map. And so each layer that I add to this power cube is going to reverse the flow of water on all the lower layers. So to handle that, I need the last layer, the very bottom layer, to have some way to handle changing the direction. And that's what this extra channel on the side is going to be. I can basically put floodgates on either side and open and close them as I change the direction of flow. So I'm going to build at least the start, the ending channel, and I'm going to leave space for it so I don't run into problems later. Bigger problem is we need to get beavers down here to actually dynamite some of this stuff away. So for that, we're just going to build a really quick stairs, and then we probably need at least some roads down to get to everything. Now, another thing I could do that I'm not is I could build bridges like this periodically, basically every other 2. And the only reason I'm not going to do that just yet is I know that this pit is going to grow farther and farther in other directions. I don't want to have to tear all these things, down all the time. While they work on that, I think I'm going to actually make this channel for the first round. I'm going to make it a little bit wider. I'm not going to go all the way down to the edge of the map, but maybe down over here would be okay. And you can see where having that local supply of TNT really helps. So all these beavers can come and run through here. They can put everything down and then just run and get the next set of supplies. I'm also really curious if that supply of water is doing anything. For example, if I follow this guy who walked all that way, is he going to take advantage of the local water and food? No, he's just going to walk by it and go all the way home. Well, that's too bad. I wonder what the calculation that they do for where they eat is. It could also be the type of food. I wonder if he prefers food that he doesn't have yet. Yeah, so he went all the way and got mangroves over there. So that's probably a factor, is I can have food over there, but he won't eat it if he doesn't need it. I am surprised he didn't grab water from here, though, because there was tons of water available. So maybe this doesn't work the way I hoped it did. Good news is that our builder bots seem to be working just fine with all of this. In fact, we could probably put down another 2 building huts so that they can continue working through the night. Well, they should make short work of that. We're half a day before the drought starts, and, peeking back at our water supply, I noticed that we're no longer able to get our main tank filled up. We did get all our secondary tanks close to being filled up this time, including our water downstream, but that is a little concerning. That shows that we're starting to reach the point where this water supply, that's it. It's capped off. There's nothing extra getting off the map. So we are going to have to, in the near term, start picking off some new water supplies. So as we enter a 20-day drought, that is on my mind too. I think that's going to be the next thing that we're going to tackle as soon as we get our initial power construction set up here. Well, we're getting close in very little time. That technique of using the TNT locally, that is really good. Oh, bought down. What was he even doing there? Oh, sorry, Tidamore. You should not have been gathering those. Poor guy. That's so sad. I think that's our first casualty we've had from TNT. Poor guy. You know what? I'm going to build a little memorial for him. We could build a little beaver bust over in, a nice little quiet spot of our colony. I don't think he had a beard. Maybe that's a little bit of artistic license. But in the meantime, let's not put his sacrifice to waste. We're going to continue our dynamiting out of this little channel. And with that, we should be able to extend it just a little bit farther and get our army of bot builders laying everything down. We do have a good number of builders at this point. However, that does come down with the downside that our extract is going down very, very quickly. If I look up here, our large tank is completely empty. Well, I think it's thanks to our water wheel, we do have quite a bit more power in here. And the centrifuges are the same shape as our engines. So what I could do is just replace a couple of our engines with some more centrifuges, and then we can keep these staffed with bots. We did have enough extract to finish the next layer though, so let's detonate it and see what everything looks like. Now, if this worked according to plan, we should get a channel ready to go. Okay, that looks pretty promising. So at the tail end here, we're going to need 2 double floodgates so we can swap the direction of water. And then we're going to repeat kind of that same process that we had before. So if we were to put multiple runs down like this, and then we should be able to repeat it down here. Now, I'm going to pause some of these because I don't want them to be fully constructed yet. I'm just going to plan them. Because these are pretty expensive. You know, logs and planks, each one of these eats up quite a bit. Then from there, what we need to do is we need power running through everything. So like before, we're going to have the power shaft intersections and run straight power lines through everything. And let's see, we're going to need some people to get down here. We can continue using this staircase. And I think some of this does need to be lowered yet another layer. So I think I made a mistake on this last bit here. It's going to need to go down at least one more. Next up, we need to get bad water going through this somehow. And we've got, luckily, a nice supply of bad water right up here. So we're going to have to continue laying down, I think, some dynamite to get everything in here kind of to ground layer first. And then once this is done, we can figure out how to run the channel. We'll basically just run a channel all the way down here and dump the water right below. When you've got the resources nearby and an army of builders, it doesn't take much time at all. Next problem we've got, we need to get the power out of here somehow. So what I think I'm going to do instead is just take something over here, bring a power shaft up and underneath this road. So we can run a road to the edge of this construction all the way back to the river. And that's going to disguise our power line. And just like that, we can take the power shafts all the way up, then cap it off, then disguise it with our platform. That's looking pretty good, and now we just need to make the run to connect the bad water here. In addition to that run for the water, we're going to need another run over here, and this is going to be where we're going to put the rest of that power line. Oh, alright, that's a mistake on my part. I forgot that this is going to connect to the water flowing. Well, that's okay, it's just going to flow down there and off the map, but we will have to figure that out. I think the easiest way, we'll just put in a levee at the end here to block it off, and then we can just take the power above that. Because eventually, there's not going to be any bad water flowing through there. It's all going to be capped off. Which, actually, now that I think of it, that gives me a longer term idea. Like this river right here, it's going to be worthless at a certain point. If I'm just taking all of this bad water and throwing it down this channel right here, this shouldn't be blocked off. I could actually have good water connected through here and then green more of this part of the map, especially since I have access to different parts in here. A little aqueduct could run from up here and deposit the water in that area much easier. Well, I'm going to treat that as a long-term plan. Long-term, I might actually increase the height of this mesa, so I don't want to invest in this complicated aqueduct system only to tear it off. So I'm just going to redirect the water down here to begin with. In fact, this channel is almost ready to do just that, and we've got 2 large power wheels. Let's put down some dynamite to connect everything. Hopefully that's enough for 2 bad water sources to funnel through. Because there is a limit to how much water can flow down. It's limited based on the number of edges available. So we'll see. Hopefully this is enough for all that flow. Well, I can see the water flowing down all the way through here, getting to our run and powering our water wheels. And, you know, looking at each of these, I see this outputting 140. What are they producing up here? 260. So I should expect this to speed up. At least I would hope it to. So what you can see, I'm damming this off to make sure water doesn't flow in this direction. I'm using dams just in case it overflows, because I don't want a disaster on my hand. But if this works, I should expect this to start picking up steam. Yeah, these guys are going much faster. I wonder if that's because I'm pumping the stuff faster like in here, so I'm actually reducing the flow. That could be it. I'm probably reducing the amount of water going through here. But this did work. You can see this stuff no longer needs to go anywhere else. Well, that's good. We can start building some of these large water wheels now. But in the meantime, we have two things. One, I'd like to increase the flow rate of this, so we should probably build a second bad water discharge on this source. The other thing we should do is, this is kind of worthless power right now. Even though it's producing, and I can see it being produced all the way down here, this is not connected to anything. So we need to actually run it to something. And that's going to tie into something I started in one of the prior episodes. So if we take a look back at our river, you notice our river, very dark, very deep. But if we look underneath, you can see that there's this actual pipeway. And if I peek into that pipe, you'll notice that I've got power lines through this. Now, it ends here because I didn't complete it, but the idea is that I want it to use the rivers as both a distribution for a water pipe, as well as a distribution for power. And we've got power here now, and we've got a power line here. We could connect this by continuing that approach. So in that case, I'm going to plan on having additional power lines all through here. And again, I'm going to make it very discreet and try to run it just on the edge of the water. Then that's going to continue all the way up here. Now, unfortunately, I do have a little bit of a logistics nightmare to get down here. I don't really have stairs, easy access, and where we do have access, there's not an easy way over. So I think we're going to need to run another set of stairs down. And then probably another set of stairs down here too. And then on this side of the river, at least, we've already got easy access, so that shouldn't be too bad to work with. Okay, that's going to take a little bit of time for them to get the dynamite situated through there, build the little odd stairs in. Let's take care of that other thing I was mentioning. Let's get another bad water source unlocked. Now, I think, like the other one, we should be able to just build, I think, a bridge over to get access to it. So if I put a bad water source like that and dangle a bridge over there, I think they can hang off the edge of that bridge and build it. And, you know, while I'm here looking at this, you'll notice I've stacked basically all the bots in one really tiny area of our base. And there is a building that could help with this, given that there's so many bots here. And that is something called a control tower. And that's going to boost the performance of everybody in a certain range, but come at the cost of our science production. And so we only have really one science here, that's our number cruncher, which is producing 10 science per hour. So if we put one of these control towers in, it's going to cut our science production down by roughly 30%. So I don't want to spam these everywhere until I have a ton of number crunchers, which takes energy, which is where this guy will come in. But in the meantime, you know, if I could fit one number cruncher in here that covers a large percentage of the space where the bots work, that would probably work out pretty well. Well, I think I'm going to put one right back in there. That should cover most of our important production here. As soon as that got built, this guy needs to get charged, but I can see he's got a +1 to his boost now, if he uses his charging station, which was right there. You should get back there and charge, man. Well, I think this is showing one of the downsides of having bots as our builders. So bots as our builders is great when they were limited over here, because there's charging stations here and they can work. But as they become builders and they have to go over a much larger distance of the colony, I don't have charging stations distributed out there. So I can run into situations like this guy, where he's just kind of slowly walking around the map. You know, and that surprises me. I've got 11 bots who are, no, 14 bots who are incapacitated due to charging. And I do have an open charging station here, so I'm surprised that the one who's closest didn't use it. I wonder if, you know, somebody calls dibs on it, even though he's halfway across the map and walking to it. Well, we can partially address that by increasing the number of charging stations. We're not using these engines anymore, so maybe we can just make a little run here and have back-to-back charging stations for these guys. I'm also noticing that our number of unemployed beavers, regular beavers, is slowly inching up because they've got nothing to do, because with those bots, they've slowly been backfilling those positions. But for now, let's just make another extra hauling post. I can always use that. I did notice as I was putting this down, I did run into that same mistake of forgetting these buildings only transfer power in the middle. So these guys are getting power indirectly through here, not through this connection. So I had to destroy these. I'm hoping that once we get a few more of these built, that's going to fix and solve some of our incapacitated bots. I bet if I looked online, there's probably a ratio of bots to charging stations needed to support them. Now, one of the things that's limiting production of these bots and all these bot charging stations is gears. We're perpetually out of gears because they're used in a lot of different inputs. Well, we do have extra lumber coming in here, thanks in large part to this massive tree farm. I think we can put in a few extra gear production just to make that no longer the bottleneck. We'll attach it to these existing engines, and these existing engines, one day, we're going to have to get this connected to our power grid, which honestly shouldn't be that hard. As soon as we get this pipe connected, we can connect this part right here into our new water wheel. So let's take a look to see how that dynamite has been looking. Well, I see that most of it's actually been laid by now, so let's go ahead and detonate it, and then we can get everything actually connected. Well, the big thing is that we're going to need to get these two layers level. And I think they are not quite there. Well, we're about to get into the wet season very, very soon, so I'm just going to drain some of this lake right now. And we'll get a beaver over there to dynamite this part flat so we can get the pipe in. And I'm pretty sure that this is 1, 2, 3. That's 3 layers deep. So we're going to need a 3-level dynamite right there. Luckily, the wet season will be coming here, so I don't care if I drain this lake too much. Actually, I do kind of care, because that would drain this, which I don't want. Just to buy us time, I'm going to close that dam so we're not losing water. That way we're just losing free river water while this leaks. I'll get the triple dynamite already laid, and now we can just rush build and get this constructed again. So we know that we're going to need pipes going through, then we're going to put down our platforms, the impermeable floors. Then after that, I think we can get away with just 1 triple floodgate to sit on top of everything. I could have done this in a more controlled manner. For example, I could have made a temporary dam structure, but with the wet season here anyways, it's just going to fill back up immediately. Provided I close all of these. I forgot, these are on an angle, so they don't communicate with each other. We lost a little bit of water, not much. Triple floodgate is complete. Okay, that should stop it. And, oh, you know, one thing I will have to do, though, is this pipe is uncapped over here. Yep, so this water is going to continue to flow and let this drain. Well, I'm going to be a little tricky here. What I'm going to do is separate the pipe into 2. So I'm going to take the water and I'm going to have it run through here and put a sluice gate in there. That way I can cap it off and stop the flow of water temporarily. Because that would block the power, I need to get the power lines out of the pipe, sealed off with impermeable floors, and then brought down and joined back in the pipe over here, again with impermeable floors. Just like that. So I can mark this one closed. And I'll have to remember to come back here and delete it sometime in the future after everything is connected. But that should stop the pipe from leaking. But with that, let's just get the rest of our power lines laid. And this is going to connect all the way back with our new power plant. You can see I just need to repeat that same process, put down the corner pieces, put everything down, and get it running all the way here. So these guys are furiously going and staffing all of that. Now, over at our power plant, just need to get everything connected. And we're going to run into that exact same problem where we're going to have water leaking out of our pipe when we try to get the power out. So we're going to repeat that same kind of technique. So first we're going to get everything nice and level. Then we're going to make an upward power shaft junction. Then all of this would have impermeable floors placed on top of it. Then from here, this should be able to get up all the way to the top. Now, I'm realizing I still have a risk here of water from the river, not the pipe, overflowing and getting into this outlet here, because the water could flow through that area. So I think we're going to need to do just a little extra bit here. We're going to have to put down some dirt here, maybe some double dynamite there, and then we're going to have to change around some of our gears down below here. So that's not going to need to be there. This is going to have to be a little corner, and then we can make the gears go up and around that piece of dirt, which is going to look something like this. Now, if I click on here, you can see we've actually got a lot of power going through here. We've got 4,700 power going through this. And if we jump all the way over and look at the other end of our pipeline, we'll see that's being transferred all the way down into the center of our colony now. So with power going through, it's time to connect it. I think the first place I want to connect it to is our industrial zone here. I'm thinking the easiest way is just to connect straight on the other side of the river up to this power shaft up here. Now to do that, we're just going to repeat the exact same process we did on the other side. we're going to make a channel all the way down to the bottom of the river, hide a line down underneath to the edge here, and then we're going to start laying down the power shaft so it can go all the way up high. Now, once they're all the way up here, you can just make a little ledge so the beavers can get access to it, and then we can plan on running the power line above their heads to connect into the existing power line that we've already got there. Now, back at the river, you can see that we just need to cap off that little bit with the pipe with impermeable floors, allow the vertical power shaft to go through the pipe, and then connect it with the rest of that line that we've got going on. It's a little bit fiddly, so we're not leaking water, but I think that's going to work. And we can see those guys are already busy getting everything connected. And as they're doing that, I just realized I made a vital mistake. So I put the wrong vertical power shaft down. I had basically L shapes all the way up. So I got to replace everything in here and cap it off again. Well, with Junkertown taken care of, I want to take a look at the next industrial zone and get it connected to the grid. Now, luckily, like I said earlier, we've already got a potential area we can connect it to with our large power wheel down here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and delete that because we don't really need it, because we don't have much water flowing. And as I look at this other set of stuff, I think we could actually delete it too. So I'm going to just run the pipe all the way back up to where that construction starts. Then I'm going to just delete everything. Everything that is except for that bridge. And with all of that cleared out, we can just continue the pipe all the way up so that we get kind of close to where that vertical power shaft is. Now, the vertical power shaft that's there, I'm gonna actually remove it a bit. I'd like to make something a little bit more discreet, built into the cliff so it's not as visible. And we're gonna plan on connecting that with the pipe. Just like that. Now, once we've got power up here, we need to make sure everything is connected, because right now this is connected into two separate parts. Now, I think the easiest way to connect our factory here is to move this little green space here. I think that would be a nice spot where we could run power lines underneath. So I'm gonna tear out all these trees, and once the trees are removed, I'm gonna run some power lines under the road, just like we've done in a few other places. Like, we can very discreetly hide it and just connect one section or one city block to another city block. I can then put in a bunch of extra buildings, and I even have some space for some decorations and maybe some more bot charging stations in case I've got some bot builders over here. And with that, I can see that our powers jumped up to 11,000 now, and that's because I've, in the background, been having more and more power wheels put down. So with that, we can pause our engines down here and pause the other engines down on the side here. And with that, I think we've got all of this connected to our grid. And that just leaves one last spot with a bunch of engines, and that's our food factory. You see, our food factory is stacked up here with 3 engines with a bunch of storage underneath. And I think we could just splice right into the power line right below it. So I'm going to delete all these engines, as well as all the storage and stairs. Now, what I'm thinking is we could eventually put food factories in here to get more production in. So we're just going to put TNT, the intent of going all the way down here and connecting into this power line. So I'll just add a T-junction where we're going to splice in, and after a couple days of dynamite, we've got some space. So we'll just put the upward power shaft, seal it with impermeable floors, and then bring it all the way up to the top. And then we can seal off the final bit of the pipe, as well as, just to hide everything, add some levees. Now, as I'm looking at adding the food factory, I'm realizing that it's off center, right? So like if I were to put a food factory here, it would connect on the corner. I don't actually know if that's going to work. So just in case, since these factories are kind of expensive, I'm going to zigzag the line so it connects to the middle of the building. Right, and with that all laid, then we can put down additional food factories right like that. There we go. So everything should be connected. We're now drawing 7,000 of our 9,000 or of our 10,000 horsepower, but everything is connected here. Now we still have the oddball engine still around. We've got smelting here, which we could take care of later, and this oddball food factory here. Also, this one up here in our downtown district. We'll get to this one later. In fact, I might eventually take out all the manufacturing here, but I think that does solve the immediate concern I had with power. In fact, with us not burning all of our wood anymore, I can see that our log supply is slowly inching upward. Now with everything starting to be secure, I'm going to open up our main dam here so that we can get water regulated down below again. And with that water flooding out, that should get our mangroves from dying too. But other than that, I think we've got 5 days left in the drought and things are looking pretty good. We do have a lot of unemployed bots, so that is also pretty handy. I should see if there's anything I can assign them to over here that they're not already doing. Well, there's a few odd buildings, like the centrifuge and whatnot. Otherwise, Junkertown's pretty much all fully booked. Well, I can have some of them take over some of the positions over here. We have charging stations over here now that everything is connected to the grid. What I would like to do, though, with some of this remaining time that we have in the drought, is find a purpose for our pipe. So our pipe right now, it has a purpose. It's power. But really, the pipe's purpose is to transport water. And that's something that we're not utilizing it for at all. And that's because it needs to be connected to some water source and actually to be sealed off. So, with that in mind, I think we should start heading this pipe in the direction of one of the water sources. Now, the one that I have in mind is all the way up at the top of the river. This one, right here. If we could run the pipe all the way up there, this would be the next major source of water we could tap into. Now, I don't know if we'll get all the way there. We can at least start dynamiting the way. So first thing we're going to have to do is get space under here. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to dynamite this away. I do see another use that we could use for a pipe to fill up this dam. So as I mentioned earlier, we've tapped out this supply. We can't even fill this up at the end of the drought. But if we had another pipe in here from another water source, it could deposit water up here for us too. So let's take a look. If I were to make kind of a pipe, connect it to something, and run it all the way up here, that could work. And in a dry season when this is empty already, would be a perfect time to do it. So I'm going to empty as much of this as I can. And then maybe we can dynamite all the way down to make a sealed container for a pipe to get in here. Well, looking at the setup here, I think the best place I could potentially make a pipe up is going to be right here. And this is kind of risky because what I want to do is make a hole in the bottom of our dam and then patch it in roughly 4 days. Because I'm going to want to have that active again in time for the wet season. Is this too risky? Well, we'll see. Especially since a dry season is the only time I'm going to be able to get away with this anyways. Well, there's the hole in our dam. Whatever water is left is going to drain. And we'll just keep on getting that dynamited all the way down to the bottom. Where I'm ultimately going with this is once this is all the way up high like this, I could put a gate right here and then on top of this pressurize it so that water can flow out of this but not into it. And that way, under pressure, the water could flow all the way from up here, down the pipe once it's eventually there, and then back up and then fill in the top of this dam from a second source, letting it fill up even faster. So I just need to get these exploded all the way down as far as I can to get level with this pipe, and then I could put levees to seal it. Okay, we've got the last round of dynamite in. Let's pause, because I want to maximize all the time I've got here. So first, we'll run, just like everything else, we're going to run all the pipes through the bottom. Next, we're going to put down our platforms, then we're going to put down our impermeable floors on this section at least. And then we're going to stack up levees all through that section there. And that's really going to be the part that's the hardest part to finish in time. So that's going to be the highest priority thing that we can do. And then we'll see if we can finish that. I'm going to run power through here. I don't know why, but this might be another way to get power up to the main downtown district. Okay, everything is situated and we've got 2 days left. You know, if I could take this back, I probably would have inset this pipe a little bit more just so you couldn't see it as much, but that's okay. I'll know for next time, just to disguise it a little bit more. I'm still getting used to all the mechanics with the 3D water physics. Well, what do you know? I think they're gonna make it okay. You can see they're almost up to that level right there. And I don't mind, you know, at this rate, however, they should be able to continue building this faster than the water is rising to the top. Wet season is coming back. We should have water flowing. And we just built it in time. And our big test will be to see if anything leaks from the bottom. I'm pretty sure that we're safe though. But with water starting to fill in, I don't see anything dripping through there. And the beavers just finished the top of the pipe. Now you can see there's a little bit of a hole here where you can see the power shaft got all the way up. but it has an impermeable floor below it. So even if the water rises up to this level, it's not going to flood down through the pipe. And this gate is going to guarantee that water can exit, but not leave. And of course, none of this matters yet because this pipe is still not connected to a source yet. But I think that's going to be a problem for a future episode, because I think we're at a good stopping point now. Really, we accomplished quite a bit. We've got the start of a new extensible power plant system over here, which has tons of space where it can grow. We've got our pipe now extended all the way down here with power flowing through it all. We got our power connected to both our food factory and our secondary factory up here. We're able to turn off all of our engines. And finally, we got that pipe all the way up to the top of our main dam so that we have the option of connecting that pipe to other water sources. So I'm really looking forward to actually hooking this pipe up because this has been a very future-looking plan, and I'm looking forward to seeing it come to fruition. As always, I hope you guys enjoy these episodes, and I hope to catch you next time.